Greetings and salutations, Vineyard Boise. This is Church on the Field Sunday, and that's why, once again, I'm wearing our classic In Garden City for Garden City shirt, because I am, well, my back says I'm like staff. What is it? Support staff or event staff or something. But anyway, so there you go. Wearing the uniform, but I'm not actually on Church of the Field. I'm right now in my backyard because this would be Church on the Field, which is now church in my backyard, which is actually church in my office, because this is like my office here, except like in winter when temperatures are like sub-zero and icicles are hanging everywhere. Then no, I do not have my office out here, but right now this is my office. As you can tell, I have spared no expense with the decor. So yeah, Church on the Field Sunday, church in my office in my backyard. You are getting church at home. So I actually encourage you to join me outside. If you can just take this outside to your backyard, if you can, and let's just all be outside, be where nature is so beautifully on display. And we'll just have some thoughts for a few moments this morning, because we're not live streaming the event in Church on the Field, because that is out in the field. We just don't have the technology to do that, and that's okay. So that's what this is for. This is to give you something so you're not just left watching reruns. Although, after you've watched this, you might be asking for those reruns. I don't know. Maybe you don't have to wait until this is over to say, oh, where's a rerun? Give us a good rerun. But you have this. So, now Brent is actually teaching out there on Sunday morning. He's going to be talking about the movie Encanto, which was our movie night movie, and tying it into a theme that we're going to be exploring through the month of August, right up through and including Labor Day, and that is identity, specifically our identity. Who am I? And as we search and try to get our feet on the ground in our identity, this really is a whole lot more than just navel gazing, which I'm not going to do here. I'm going to keep my shirt on, relax. All right, so yeah, we're not doing the navel gazing thing. We do want to pause, though, and really dig into just who are we? Who are we as a people? Who are we as individuals making up a people? Because those are actually connected things. Our identity is not just what we find by ourselves in a cubicle. We do actually find it, not necessarily in a cubicle, but we do find it definitely by ourselves. Identity is something that we discover, that we walk into, I believe, as we step outside and we take nice long walks alone. With God. We can be listening to a podcast. We can just listen to nature's podcast and invite God to share his podcast with us. But yes, identity is so often found walking along the proverbial babbling brooks, or in the case where my walk generally is, the steady flowing canal. That just sounds a lot less poetically satisfying than babbling brook, though. But yes, we find it in solitude. We also find it in company with others. I think it was Bonhoeffer that observed, if we do not know how to be alone, we will not know how to be together, and vice versa. So they are linked. So we're going to explore these themes and touch on both of those aspects of it in the course of the next few weeks here. So what I'm going to do now, we don't even know for sure exactly what those Sundays and the teaching is going to look like. That's kind of what the Holy Spirit is for. And so, Brent's going to be doing that. Others, I'll be doing one of them. And what I have to draw on for this, and hopefully I'm not like preempting or doing a heavy, a spoiler for something, like I'm stealing one of Brent's sermons before he's even put it together. Wow, that would be impressive, wouldn't it? But it would really kind of be bad. So we'll try to avoid that. But yeah, regardless, what I want to do and what I am going to draw from, actually, I've actually been writing devotions for the last week of August. It's like week 4 of this series, or is it week 5? Whatever week it is, it's actually the second to the last week. And it was specifically focusing on the image of God, because I figure that'll be relevant no matter where the Sunday teaching goes that week. It's going to be relevant that we are image bearers, that we are icons, living icons of God. So I've been writing about that all week long. So it's kind of natural. Okay, this maybe is a good place to start. That way also, by the time you get to the end of August, it'll seem like, hey, didn't I hear this before somewhere? And it'll sound familiar, but it will still be fresh. So stealing from myself, not from Brent, I think that's the only responsible thing to do. And frequently I do try to be responsible, contrary to what you might hear otherwise. So we'll start with the image bearers. This is remarkable truth, and it is remarkable, but it's just so common and so known to us. You know, we just pass by it because it's, well, we see it all the time. It's like driving by Table Rock and not being impressed by the geological formation, let alone the cross that's on it, what all this represents. You see it every day. You drive by it on the way to work, there it is, it's a landmark, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. This can be very much like that. When in Genesis 1:26, then God said, let us make human beings in our image. Yeah, it's just part of the Genesis text. We know the story, yada, 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 move on to the next thing. But this is so huge. It is so huge. It was so subversive, countercultural. The cultural stories, you know, the whole Genesis story is the Hebrew imagination going to work with current cultural stories, which typically involved cosmic forces battling it out. There's a cosmic beast of chaos, typically called Leviathan or the sea beast, and you've got these waters of chaos, and it's whatever the hero of the story is, the hero god fights the beast of chaos and kills it, and it's a smackdown, and there's blood and there's guts and a number of them. Earth is formed from the guts of the beast of chaos, and guess what? Humans are formed from the gore and the blood of the beast of chaos. Yay, there's a good self-image. We were formed from the blood of the beast of chaos. I wonder what we're going to be walking out in our stories then. Well, that was the stories of origin circulated within the culture, and the Hebrew imagination takes those stories, turns them on their head, and now we have a story not of a cosmic battle, but of a cosmic artist and sculptor who is speaking life into existence, but he does so, those first words of Genesis, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, which in Hebrew is this marvelous phrase, Barashit bara Elohim et hashemayim va'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void. Hebrew, tohu vavohu. All right, say it with me. Tohu vavohu. Tohu vavohu. I very frequently say it's the basic condition you'll find any teenager's room to be in at the moment. It means a formless mass of chaos, okay? It means there's so much potential there, but it's unformed, it's surging, it is just that potential, unharnessed, unformed, it's just there, raw, like raw materials surging and gurgling. And instead of being a beast to slay, if it's a beast at all, a beast of chaos, this beast is not slain, because the breath of God, okay, most translations say hovered over the face of the waters, but the Hebrew literally means caressed, okay? It caressed the face of the waters. That's what the breath of God does with chaos. It doesn't fight it. It doesn't take a sword and slay the beast and then use its guts to make something useful. No, actually, caresses the chaos. The Spirit of God caressed the watery mass of tohu vavohu, and then God said, Yihi or. And then Vayhi or. Let there be light. And there was light, and that's where the whole thing gets started. There was a big bang. It sounded something like a light switch turning on, roughly, or the clap on done so brilliantly by Morgan Freeman playing God and Bruce Almighty. Clap on, clap off. And we don't want the clap off part because that's like apocalypse. So just the one time is good, gets the whole thing going. Okay, and then we have these days of creation, right? Where God speaks, let there be, let there be, let there be, let there be. And there was, and God saw that it was good. And then we have a complementary creation story. It's like we have two creation poems put back to back. They actually do not harmonize. I would suggest you not try to harmonize poetry. That's like saying, can a poet ever really make sense? Let's subject his words to scientific analysis. Okay, don't do that with poetry. That's why we avoid poetry. It's going to hurt our brains. No, you let poetry do what poetry does. We have like two creative tellings of origins. The second one is not Elohim, who is speaking into existence. Now it is Yahweh. It is the God we're going to meet more fully in Exodus. Moses encountering this God at that burning bush, who introduces himself then really for the first time as the I Am, which is Yod He Vav He, the Tetragrammaton. That's who's acting in chapter 2. And this God, the order's totally different. There's so many differences between the two. This sometimes freaks us out. It shouldn't. It didn't freak them out, and this is their collection. They saw benefit in putting two complementary and yet contrasting stories. I don't think it's a matter of contradiction. It's a matter of contrast for a reason. And so just go with it. All right, go with it. Let them have their say before you go and try and take control of this and turn it into something that it's not. So the contrasting story, we have not a power that's speaking things into being. It is now a sculptor putting on the apron of a sculptor or a potter, and as the pivotal moment in this second creation telling is Yahweh, okay? Yod He Vav He, which is the sound of breath. Wouldn't that be amazing if every time we said the name of God, we just stopped and had to take a breath? And so when said, let us make man in our image, according to chapter 1, what he does here actually is, as it were, get down on his hands and knees and gets his hands dirty. He takes from the dirt of the ground and he sculpts. All right, he forms the first human, the Adam, made from the Adamah, the creature of dust made from the dust, or, okay, the dirt bag made from the dirt. Let's stick with creature of dust from the dust. Sounds more poetic, less pejorative, because we're talking about identity. And the fact is, we're not dirt bags. Okay, you might be called a dirt bag, you might be acting like a dirt bag, but we're not dirt bags. We are, however, creatures of dust regardless. But the point is, God breathed into the nostrils of this Adam, of this creature of dust, breathed into his nostrils Nishmat Chaim, the breath of life, and he became a Nefesh Chaim, a soul of life, a living soul. The Hebrew word Nefesh refers to the throat, and so think something concrete. It's like and this is where life is centered right here for us. You cut off the head, you're done. You strangulate, you're done. Cut the throat, you're done. That was really morbid, sorry. But that's nefesh, okay, representing the essence of life. We became a nefesh chaim. There's identity for you. We are a creature of dust. We've received divine breath, and we are a nefesh chaim. And more than that, we are the zelem Elohim, the image of God. That's one of the unique things. I can look at the trees and it tells me things about God. I can look up there at the sun, tells me things about God. Just make sure you don't look directly at it, you'll go blind. But I can observe creation, I learn things about God. But to see your face, all right, to see your face in the mirror, how often do you look at your face in the mirror and you just say, blech, all right? And the reality is what we should be saying, and honestly, this is not a Stuart Smiley moment of you're good enough, you're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you. It's not that. No, you look in the mirror. This is just the fact of the story. Let the story have its import. This is how it's meant to impact us. I look into the mirror and I say, I am a nefesh chayim, a living soul in possession of the nishmat, all right, the breath of life, right? And I am a zelem Elohim. You don't have to say the Hebrew. I am a living soul with the breath of God in my lungs, and therefore I am the very image of God. That's the message of the creation story. We are all divine image bearers. Now, in the devotions for week 4, you're going to encounter this at length. It's actually a story told by Andrew Crouch from his book, The Life We're All Looking For. Pretty sure that's the title. Find his most recent title. Great book, short read, easy read, very meaningful read. But he tells the story being Chicago O'Hare Airport. And he didn't get his walk-in for the day, and he's got a couple hours layover, and so he just starts walking in Chicago O'Hare. But he says, I'm going to turn this into a spiritual exercise, because this is, of course, what we all think when we're at Chicago O'Hare Airport and we're just trying to kill time. Let's turn it into a spiritual exercise. Well, maybe we should be thinking that way, people. Okay, it's available. You can do it. Well, this is what he does. He says, I'm going to start noticing people. And it's not just being a people watcher to like, look at that guy. Wow, isn't he amazing? Okay, what an interesting story there. Or making up stories and so forth. Basically entertaining yourself at people's expense, commenting on their looks, either for the good, the bad, or the ugly of them. No, he didn't do that. What he did is each one, he said, I am just going to see them as I pass without being creepy or doing the stalker thing. I am going to look at them and observe them in passing and say, image bearer. And so he starts going through. He sees a mom struggling with her kids. Image bearer, image bearer, image bearer. He sees a senior moving along in a walker. Image bearer. Actually, it's probably a wheelchair. He sees teens on their phones. Image bearer. Image bearer. And so he's going through image bearer, image bearer, image bearer. And by the time he had done that for like an hour of walking, he had observed, he figures what, up to 200, 300 people. And he was doing it with that level of focus. And he's thinking about their stories. He's thinking about who are these people that God has shaped. I'm looking at Zelem Elohim, images of God, image bearers, who are living souls with a breath of the divine in them. And he said he was like exhausted. I'm thinking if we could just do that next time we're shopping at Fred Meyer's, just imagine what that might do to your attitudes that day. Instead of being annoyed at that person in the cart in front of you and having supermarket rage, image bearer, image bearer. Okay, it's a very slow-moving image bearer. It's an image bearer that just blocked the whole stinking aisle and doesn't seem to notice that another image bearer is behind her. But image bearer, what's her story, God? And they just speak God's blessing over her. Do it when you're driving. Imagine what that would do to road rage. All right, image bearer, image bearer. And yes, you might be thinking, that image bearer is given a license? What? Okay, and you're immediately getting off track, aren't you? Image bearer, image bearer, image bearer. That'd be a practical activity I'd give to you. I can't do that back here. There's no other image bearers here. I'm like the only one. This is solitude. But I can see my face as I'm talking, and it's like, whoa, whatever I think about myself on most days, that's an image bearer looking back at me as I'm filming this. Wow, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Now, to be able to do this without getting a big head and becoming a jerk, well, that's the spiritual discipline. I am an image bearer of God, not of myself. Maybe that will help to ground us in this. So, identity. This is its root right here. Genesis 1, Genesis 2. I just want to finish by reading a story about St. Francis, who would be definitely my patron saint. Got a big painting of him done by Lisa Martin that's on my wall. And I look at that painting when I'm in my office. Okay, it may not be a lot that I'm there because I'm out with lots of image bearers most every day of the week. But when I see it, it just reminds me, this is who I am. This is what I do. I am one in the world with nature, with the birds and with the squirrels I see each morning scurrying about on the ground, and then with the image bearers that I'm surrounded by constantly. God, help me to remember that they're your image bearers and not my annoyances. Help me to remember that, God. This is the story of St. Francis. I'll read this and then we'll be done. This should be kept just a little over 20 minutes, okay? This is the book St. Francis of Assisi by G.K. Chesterton. It's a classic. Get this and read it. Okay, I'm just saying, get it and read it. Brianna, if it's not in the bookstore, it needs to be there. Okay, this is Kingdom of God stuff, serious Kingdom of God stuff. All right, this is what Chesterton says. I've said that St. Francis deliberately did not see the wood for the trees. It is even more true that he deliberately did not see the mob for the men. What distinguishes this very genuine, okay, this is going to sound inflammatory, Democrat. Okay, it's before this. I'm pretty sure Chesterton was UK. This is not a political thing. He was just a very genuine Democrat. He was one that saw power in the people, which is what Democrat. He was a man of the people, of ordinary human beings. Okay. What distinguishes this very genuine Democrat from any mere demagogue is that he never either deceived or was deceived by the illusion of mass suggestion. There are so many sermons just in that last sentence. So many sermons. But I continue. Whatever his taste in monsters, he never saw before him a many-headed beast. He only saw the image of God multiplied, but never monotonous. To him, a man was always a man and did not disappear in a dense crowd any more than in a desert. He honored all men. That would be all humans, okay? Because there was a sisterhood as well as a brotherhood of, if there were little brothers and little sisters both, okay? So that's not a sexist thing. Yeah. Anyway, it's humanity, all right? And so he honored all people, every human. That is, he not only loved but respected all. What gave him his extraordinary personal power was this, that from the Pope to the beggar, from the Sultan of Syria in his pavilion to the ragged robbers crawling out of the wood, there never was a man who looked into those brown, burning eyes without being certain that Francis Bernardone was really interested in him, in her. In his own inner individual life, from the cradle to the grave. All right, that's the level of intensity. Image bearer, from cradle to grave and everything in between. This is the image of God that I see before me, wondrous and incomprehensible and deserving of the most marvelous respect and generosity and politeness and courtesy. All right, and so, all right, from the Pope to the beggar, from the Sultan of Syria in his pavilion to the ragged robbers crawling out of the wood, there was never a man who looked into those brown, burning eyes without being certain that Francis Bernardone was really interested in him, in his own inner life, from the cradle to the grave, that he himself was being valued and taken seriously, and not merely added to the spoils of some social policy or the names in some clerical document. You're not just a political statistic, and you're not merely some religious institution's checkmark. You are somebody of value before God. And yes, I feel like I'm Stuart Smiley in a positive, I don't know, like a self-talk thing. I'm a motivational speaker like Chris Farley. Well, this is what gosh, it's not that. This is Francis. He lived it out. Okay, this isn't motivational speaking. This was a way of life. And what makes Francis so remarkable still after 1,000 years is that Francis is like this beautiful, pure reflection, maybe even refraction, but reflection, like a full moon, reflecting gloriously and perhaps more purely and succinctly and magnificently the glory of the Son, all right, the Son of God, who was the very image of the Father. Francis caught that and reflected it back, and we're still talking about him. I would say until Mother Teresa, perhaps, No one has caught the imagination of mankind outside of Francis. And yeah, you can put Mother Teresa there in the same, right in the same category. Don't put them on the shelf, get them out and have them as walking companions. But that's why this sticks. And that's why we need to pay attention. Francis lived it. Image of God wasn't just a theological concept or a passing phrase on a familiar page of Scripture. Okay, and so let me just grab a little bit more here and then I'll be done, I promise. Now, for this particular moral and religious idea, there is no external expression except, and notice he doesn't say evangelism, he doesn't say, oh gosh, what other words could we have? Evangelism, catechism, you know what he says? Courtesy. There is no external expression except courtesy, fitting for the reality that we are surrounded by the image of God in every human being we see. Exhortation does not express it, for it is not mere abstract enthusiasm. Beneficence does not express it, for it is not mere pity. It can only be conveyed by a certain grand manner, which may be called good manners. We may say, if we like, that St. Francis in the bare and barren simplicity of his life had clung to one rag of luxury, the manners of a court. But whereas in a court there is one king and 100 courtiers, in this story there was one courtier moving among 100 kings. For he treated the whole mob of men as a mob of kings. And this was really and truly the only attitude that will appeal to that part of man to which he wished to appeal. It cannot be done by giving gold or even bread, for it is a proverb that any reveler may fling largesse in mere scorn. You know, you'll give away stuff and despise the people you're giving it to. Oh, you poor ragamuffins, take this, you pathetic. Okay, yeah, that happens all the time. So no, it can't be expressed by that, nor is it expressed, let's see, cannot even be done by giving time and attention, for any number of philanthropists and benevolent bureaucrats do such work with a scorn far more cold and horrible in their hearts. No plans or proposals or efficient rearrangements will give back to a broken man his self-respect and sense of speaking with an equal. Only one gesture will do it, and that is dignity, courtesy, respect. Because that's what we each deserve by virtue of the fact of who we are. People who are in possession of the breath of divine life. We are a living soul. We are the image of the invisible God reflected in the full glory of Jesus, whom we are likewise, just like St. Francis, reflect as we gaze into his face, that reflection then going forth into the world. That's who we are. No pressure, not much to live up to. Actually, all you need to do is, like Francis, well, be willing to strip yourself of everything. Like Jesus, be willing to take up your cross and follow him. And as you gaze into that face, with unveiled face, all right, no veils of secrecy and of shame and of performance. We reflect back that same value to others without even trying to. You try to, okay, you're blowing it. It's going to happen very organically, very naturally, very spiritually. And that's my speech. And yours is now, well, the challenge. The challenge to look into his face, reflect the image. You are an image bearer, okay? Not a dirt bag. You're a creature of dust who bears in your dusty frame the very image of the living God. So there you go. So be blessed. Go make the invisible God visible. Yeah? Okay.
Thanks for watching. To respond or receive prayer after the live stream closes, please email prayer@vineyardboise.org, and if possible, include your phone number. We'd love to get in touch with you. Thanks.